Yo, what's up guys, I'm Niek from the Producer School and today we're diving into the rhythmic world of Afro Tech. Afro Tech has a unique energy that, in contrast to Afro House, is a bit darker and a bit more hypnotic. And today I'll break down all of the key elements such as the bass and the drums, which are the most vital part of this genre. Without further ado, let's now dive straight into the video. We can start off by setting it to a relatively slow BPM, like 120 BPM, which will do the job for Afro Tech. So the first element that I want to introduce is a pretty standard saw bass that will just function as the sub bass of your track. And in this case, it's a preset from the Savannah pack and it sounds like this. So pretty punchy and analog sounding, and it's basically a recreation of what we would make on a Moog bass. A layer of two basic mini wavetables with this squarish kind of wavetable on oscillator A, which is pitched down 2 octaves, and then this saw wave from the basic mini on oscillator B, which is pitched down just 1 octave. Then envelope 1 is shaped like this, lowered the sustain a bit and gave it some release. And envelope 2 is shaped pretty much the same, except the decay is a bit longer. And envelope 2 is linked to the MG Low 24 filter, which in turn has some extra drive to make the sound a bit more fat. Some white noise on it as well. Some tube distortion just on 50%, a bit of chorus, and that's basically it for this sound, which is really simple, yet it's really effective. Alright, so now with this bass we can create a simple bass rhythm which is just sticking on one note. And what's important to notice for these kind of basses in this genre is that you should not overcomplicate the rhythm, as you want to leave a lot of room for like percussions, tom hits, etc. So really don't overcomplicate this. You can turn on the metronome to get a better feeling of how it would sound like in context with the kick. You can already imagine some kind of hits that will hit on the same time, and that will also help you to get a better idea of what rhythm you want to choose. I think this would work. Let's copy it. Now I want to add some more punch with this EQ and a bit of more distortion with this fruity fast dist, and then it sounds like this. Moving on, I found this preset in the Savannah pack called Lead Remember, which is actually a lead, but in this case I want to use it as a top layer for the bass, a bit more wide and fills up a bit of the higher frequencies. Together that sounds like this. For the support top bass, make sure to roll off the low end right here, because we just want to leave all the room for sub bass that we created in the beginning of this video. Next up, we want to add a top lead, which is going to complement the rhythm by playing a slightly different rhythm than the bass line. And this is already the first part to getting the groove there in the track. And for that, I'm using this sound, which is also from the Savannah pack called Lead Overdrive. Very sharp sounding sound, and it basically consists out of 2 saw waves, and the first one is the saw rounded wavetable, which has these slightly rounded edges, and then the oscillator B is just a standard default wavetable which is pitched down 1 octave, together with some white noise and an envelope 1 which is going down pretty quickly, but the sustain stays relatively high, and then envelope 2 which really adds a bit of extra punch to the sound, and this is linked to the filter, and the filter has some drive on it as well. So when I bypass envelope 2, you really miss that punchy edge on the high end that it has right now. The FX part for this sound is the most important, as we have an EQ that kind of cuts out all of the low frequencies and even boosts some of the high frequencies, and this really makes the sound really sharp. This is it without, and this is it with it turned on. then some more distortion, some chorus, and some dimension to make it a bit wider, and then you have this overdriven saw lead. Another high boost and some OTT helps it to make it even more crispy and to really get that overcompressed, stabby sound. Now let's try to come up with a pattern that kind of complements the bass line that we have already. You can change the grid to, for example, 1 second step to introduce even faster variations. And together with the bass, you now have a really solid foundation to build on for your track. Together, everything sounds like this. Let's now move on to the hits and the toms right here. And these elements really define Afro Tech. So as you can see, I'm using a head loop, a tom, and a perk all layered together, stacked on top of the bass rhythm. So this basically just fills up the whole audio spectrum and adds way more punch to the bass hits. Make sure to get rid of the real low frequencies, and you can even make, for example, those head hits stereo in order to kind of make the sound even wider. Don't hesitate to play around with layering a lot of different sounds, as long as you make sure that they don't really start to clash with each other, because then it won't sound more full, but it will just sound worse. And then next for the hits, I have this triplet fill, and that sounds like this. Theory behind this is that you basically add a polyrhythm, so an extra rhythm on the rhythm you had already, and this just creates a really complex Afro Tech groove. And you will immediately hear what I mean when you play it with these top elements. Basically now you have the most important foundation of your track, which are these tom hits, bass step, and the regular bass, and these all kind of interplay, creating a nice groove already. Next up, you want to add a mysterious arp, which can just play a really simple rhythm, and in this case it sounds like this. Starting on the root note, which is an E, and then I just play around with some different notes. The sound is a super simple saw plug with an MG Low 18 filter, filtered pretty much to like 65 Hz, some tape saturation and some chorus and some delay. An LFO which is linked to the fine tune to make it a bit more unstable, and then another LFO which is linked to the panning, and then you get a sound like this. When you layer that on top of the rest, it just works really well naturally. Then we can introduce some harmonies with a top lead, just playing like long sustained notes, and in this case that sounds like this. For the effects, deleted some of the low end and added some reverb. And that's basically it for this sound. It's made in Serum as well, made out of 2 basic mini wavetables playing on the same octave. Then there's this 1/16 LFO, which is modulating the fine tune, which is kind of shaping the whole sound. Envelope 1 is just basically a very sustained envelope, and it's not linked to anything else than just the main amplitude. Some chorus, some reverb, and a bit of EQ, and that's it for this sound. And of course some glide, which you can hear in the sound. Really simple, but it just adds that extra dimension. Last but not least, for the synth, I wanted to add a synth cushion, which is basically just a sequence playing a 1/16 rhythm, which sounds like this. And it's made in Serum, really straightforward, just an LFO with a 1/4 rate, and then you can just create these moving rhythms in the LFO and link it to the level of the sound. And that together with some distortion, some delay, some reverb, and a pretty harsh low cut gets you a sound like this. The noise in this case also adds another dimension to the sound. Alright, so that's it for the main elements of the synths. Also don't forget to add some sidechain, as now we're going to add the rest of the drums, such as the kick. And you shouldn't forget to sidechain everything, also the toms and the hits, because otherwise it will just start to sound really messy. First of all, you want to add a kick with some proper punch on top of the hit. It should have enough punch through all the hits that are layered on top of it. Then in the first part of the drop you can add some simple loops and percussion hits like a bongo and some percussion right here. And then once you play the drop for a longer time, you add shakers, you add percussion loops, you add Foley loops, all those kind of driving elements to increase the overall energy of your drop. And then here some claps and a snare. Another vital element in your drop is adding those atmospheres and ambient sounds, layered with some sweeps and some down filters. Just to make it one cohesive blend of sounds. Right here is an example of how it would look like when you fully arranged all the elements together. I also added this simple vocal which I got from our latest pack. And then here, as you can see, the drop is basically a layer of everything I showed you so far in this video. And the rest of the track is basically just one big like intro / build-up where you slowly introduce all the elements. For example, this arpeggio, which has a filter cutoff automation in the build-up, which adds a lot of anticipation. I also added this little offbeat saw step, a standard saw with some voices of unison, kind of just sucks you into the new part of the lead step. And basically the arrangement, as I told you, for this is not spectacular at all. It's just slowly filtering in all those elements such as the arp and also the tom hits, and then you fully open up and put everything together that you have in the drop. And that's basically it for the arrangement of a track like this. You don't really have to introduce complex breaks or anything. You just want to keep the groove going and then slowly add some variety to the overall sound. So I will now play the end result, and that sounds like this. So I hope you guys liked watching this video on how to make Afro Tech. Let me know if you want to get more in-depth videos on this genre as well, as I really like to make videos on this genre, so something more in-depth would be really nice as well. All of the sounds and the project are included in the Savannah pack that we just released, and you can check out all the details on the spec in the link in the description. It contains everything from drums to projects and vocals, especially tailored for your Afro Tech and Afro House productions. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And for now, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I see you guys in the next video.